Hey guys, Noel here, and it is Saturday night, and I actually need to go to bed because I'm reading in church tomorrow. But before I go to bed, I thought it would be fun for us to do one more video game review for the video game section of the YouTube channel. If you watch the channel, you know we recently acquired a Sega 32X, and the game that I always wanted most on the Sega 32X when I was growing up went by the name of Virtua Fighter. This amazing polygonal fighting game was the granddaddy of polygonal games. So without further ado, let's get down to playing some Virtua Fighter on the Sega 32X. I'm going to hit the lights and then we're going to get down to some reviewing. So this game was made by Sega AM2, makers of Fighting Vipers and Shenmue. For the purposes of this review, we are going to pump our difficulty down to 1, and we are going to put our match point down to 1 as well. So easy difficulty, match point 1. And actually, I think Music Station's going to be starting on the TV screen next to me, so that'll be fun. I'll get to multitask. We have Akira, Pai, Lao, Wolf, Jeffrey, Kage, Sarah, and Jackie as our characters. So if you watched our review for the 2D Virtua Fighter on the Sega Genesis or Mega Drive, you'll know all these characters. They're all in that version as well. This really was the first 3D fighting game, and I think really the first 3D video game, and it essentially plays quite different than Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat, which were the really big fighting games in the United States at the time, and it also plays quite a bit different than the SNK offerings like Art of Fighting and Fatal Fury. This game works much more like an actual fight than the kind of button combination, 2D rhythmic D-pad sweeping games that I just mentioned. You have a block button, you have a punch button, and you have a kick button, and you really got to time your attacks well, and you move around and you knock your opponent out. Now, while I say this looks and doesn't look like a real fight, it looks like 1980s virtual reality fighting, which is awesome. So if you have ever seen a Dire Straits music video, combine that with Bloodsport and Street Fighter, and you get this awesomeness here. Anyway, but one thing that is a little not realistic in terms of the fighting system is set up to be like an actual fight, but when you jump, you tend to float in the air, which is, got kind of a Dragon Ball style to it. So that's a little different, but I think it works. Now, compared to the Sega Saturn version of this game, there is less detail, but still very bright colors and crisp, beautiful polygons and smooth gameplay. The Sega Saturn version will have a little bit more detail on the ground, some more shading to some of the polygons, a little bit more detail on character faces in the fights, but in general, there's not a ton of difference between the Saturn and the 32X version. They're both really good. Man. Gotta be careful there. If you want to play essentially an arcade-perfect visual translation of this game, I recommend getting the Virtua Fighter for the Sony PlayStation. Get the 10th anniversary edition of that, because that comes with the Virtua Fighter 10th anniversary game, which basically has the cast of Virtua Fighter 4, but portrayed in the style of the Virtua Fighter 1 arcade, and it's good stuff. Now, Pi is difficult. I always tend to use Akira, just because I tend to play Virtua Fighter 2 on Sega Genesis quite a bit with my son, and we just always end up choosing Akira, and so I'm choosing him to play, and he's difficult. I also quite a bit like using Sarah, but I'm just more used to using Akira right now, so I'm using him for this review because I'm thinking I'm going to do the best with him, but we've lost 2 fights in a row, so that's not good. This game goes by very quickly, like actually in round fights, but can actually occupy a lot of your time because you really start wanting to win, you get into the game, and before you know it, geez, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning. So probably not a good idea to play this on a school night if you're a student or a teacher. And we got a ring out. This game is actually, at least to my knowledge, the first game that actually utilized ring outs. I can't really think of any game before this that did. Certainly this is the first 3D fighting game to utilize ring outs. Now, the big competitor to this game at the time was Tekken, and Tekken was the second big 3D fighting game, and there were some people who actually worked on Virtua Fighter's development that ended up going to Namco and working on Tekken. And it's funny because you can actually find some of the data in the arcade ROM where you see things that got used in Tekken in Virtua Fighter, and Virtua Fighter predates Tekken. So Akira's early design actually looked quite a bit like Kazuya Mishima's, with those like black bangs and spiky hair. And then there's also a character named Jeffrey who looked quite a bit like Jack, the kind of Arnold Schwarzenegger-looking army robot. So right there you had basically Kazuya and Jack in Virtua Fighter. Now we're going to fight Wolf, who's actually kind of like a cross between the Ultimate Warrior and Hager from Final Fight, which is an awesome combination. Oof, just clotheslined me right there. Beautiful, beautiful sunset in this level. I actually really like the checkerboard, the checkerboard pattern on the floor. Really great music. The music in this game is great. The arcade version is even better, but I will tell you that the 32X is no slouch when it comes to MIDI-style music. And how's the arcade version better? Well, the music sounds a bit more complex and has more of a CD-style quality to it. But it's really, this game is not. It's not a far cry from the arcade version. Definitely, it doesn't look quite as good, but it looks darn good. Now, at this time, Star Fox was out for the Super Nintendo Super Famicom, and people tended to be really impressed by that game's use of polygonal graphics. Now, let's be kind of blunt here. Compared to Star Fox, this game is head and shoulders above that, but Sega is using a piece of hardware that is an add-on. It's really an entirely different system that utilizes Sega Genesis hardware. So it's really no surprise that Sega is beating its Nintendo rival with this game in terms of its ability to use polygons on cartridges. But Star Fox is still impressive. 32X, though, much more impressive in my opinion. And this game is definitely a great reason to buy a 32X. Now, another thing about Virtua Fighter, this is one thing that I think Tekken does better, definitely in terms of console ports, is Tekken does a much better job at telling the story of the game within the game. If you just played Virtua Fighter games, you would be hard-pressed to find and understand the backstory, at least in my opinion as someone who's played Virtua Fighter games, because there is no character ending for your character. And, I mean, there'll be new characters, but you don't really hear much about their backstory, and Dural, the final boss, is literally this bald, female, mechanical, metallic, polygonal being, and you don't really have to beat her to beat the game. It's really a bonus stage, but when you beat the game, regardless of whatever you do, you just essentially get credits, and it shows your character's fights being replayed to you. So that's really all you get when you play and beat Virtua Fighter. But there is a whole lore behind the game. I really should stop picking at Kira and show you some other players, but I'm just showing you some gameplay, showing you these beautiful levels here. So I'll pick Sarah, who's a character that I really like to use in Virtua Fighters 4 and 5. And actually has been I believe included in Dead or Alive 5, if memory serves me correctly. I've got Dead or Alive 5. Sarah uses Jeet Kune Do. She's actually based on Bruce Lee's widow. Now, she's actually playing quite a bit slower than I'm used to having her play, so that's definitely a negative. So I've been playing a lot of Sega Genesis Virtua Fighter, and let's try Jackie out. And I'm much more used to how that game plays, which is more similar to this. But when I play as Sarah, I'm more used to her being able to, rattle off really quick moves like she does on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. Oof, careful. Man, that was a close one. Incidentally, there is a fantastic Virtua Fighter anime that I highly recommend watching. I haven't seen a lot of it, but what I have seen of it, I love, and I love the music to it. So this is actually the final level here. So we're fighting Akira. Hopefully we can beat him. Nice. Sometimes when we play this game, you forget to block. And that's just because of the type of fighting games that I tend to play. Crayon Shinchan is on Music Station next to me, so that's a very real thing that's happening. I promise I'll pan the camera over to Music Station while when we finish this review. Excuse me. Man, those jumps are a real pain. Maybe we can lure him back. Yeah, this computer's no slouch. It didn't go well at all. I'm going to try to actually play as Akira against Akira and see how I can match up traditional karate against traditional karate. We might not beat Akira. I actually was playing this game on a school night, and I actually had to go to bed because I was wasting so much time playing it against Akira. That didn't go well at all. I mean, he is essentially the final boss. I mean, Dural is the final boss, but this is considered the final level, whereas Dural is considered a, quote, bonus level. Now, while we're fighting Akira, Akira actually was originally, I guess, not supposed to be the main character of this game. There was a Middle Eastern character named Majito, and he actually is in Fighters Megamix under the name of Siba. So he looked like a really cool character. I like Akira quite a bit. Rumor has it that Akira and Ryo from Shenmue are essentially the same character, because I guess Shenmue began as a Virtua Fighter RPG. So that's a cool thing. We almost got him. Come on. Don't screw up Noel. Come on. Jeez. This could go south in a second. Got him. Oof. Suckered him in and then went with the rising forward kick. Now we're going to fight Dural. Now we only get one shot at her. Beautiful sunset in the background. Listen to that cool music. Looks like we have to fight her for 2 rounds, too. Man, running clothesline. Oof. Come on. Nah, the suplex. Ah, she got me. Get down. And this is going to be our credits right here, but it's on a black screen, so that's not going to be great, but I'll actually pan the camera in a little bit. Maybe that'll help out. Boo. So you really get to see this game's polygonal graphics up close and see replays of your fight and all that goodness. And there we have it, friends. That is Virtua Fighter for the Sega 32X. A very, very good game that I had a lot of fun playing with you on the channel. So, without further ado, let's turn this off and look. Music station. Good stuff. What kind of music we got on? Come on, turn the volume up. What's going on? Oh, it's on mute. Did I knock the batteries out of this remote? Whatever. Yeah, got some acoustic songstress right here on the music station. I just love music station. Look at the background. Look at the pageantry and cool energy in music station. So I'm going to watch this show, get some Z's, and thank you once again for watching. Until next time, guys, my name's Noel. You take care. Play lots of Virtua Fighter and watch lots of music station. Bye-bye.